Hi, folks. I'm Father Joe Grimaldi. You can call me Joe, and I'd like to welcome you to my podcast. But now, here's our host and friend, Ken Calvert.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ken Calvert, along with Father Joe Grimaldi, and we would like to welcome you to the Father Joe Grimaldi podcast, brought to you by Hoot McInerney Star Lincoln on 12 Mile Road and Telegraph in Southfield. Well, the 2019 Detroit Auto Show is come and gone, and that means now is the time to check out the incredible after-show pricing at Hoot McInerney Star Lincoln at 12 Mile and Telegraph in Southfield, or stop on by starlincoln.com. Nice and easy. Stay inside. Stay warm. Father Joe's driving the new 2019 Lincoln MKC, and I helped him pick it out at starlincoln.com. You can virtually see what your new Lincoln's going to look like and calculate your price. Look, with these Michigan winters, there's nothing better than a remote starter, heated seating and steering wheel, and driver assist packages. You're going to love it. Oh, by the way, right now on display in the showroom, the 2019 NAIAS show stunner, the Nautilus. Assist packages. So stop on by Hoot McInerney's Star Lincoln, 12 Mile Road, just east of Telegraph in Southfield, or you can visit starlincoln.com. On Thursday's podcast, this past Thursday, we discussed in part one of National Catholic Schools Week. We talked about Joe's fascinating ride and look back on his own Catholic school education. As the son of immigrants and speaking zero English, by the 5th grade, he was fluid in English, and that was thanks to the nuns, of course, and he often acted as the translator for his parents at parent-teacher meetings. His Catholic school's journey continued as he attended All Hallows HS. It required 3 trains and about an hour to get to school every day, and that's where Father Joe had his first encounter with the Irish Christian Brothers. So now, let's continue our discussion with Father Joe Grimaldi. I'm assuming, and then I want to move on because we've just been clipping right along here.
I'm afraid, yes. I have a lot.
That's a compelling story. I'm glad I got every second of that. You know, we never talked about that, but we are talking about National Catholic Schools Week, and we're talking about your personal experience attending Catholic school.
Right.
You then went to high school, you graduated, and I think we basically know that story. What sort of money was involved in terms of your parents ponying up for you to go to grade school and high school?
First of all, keep in mind that it was in the 1940s that I was in grade school. Now, since we were close to the parish where I lived, they asked us to give $1 a month. Now, we did that, so for the 12th grades...
That would only be $40 now.
But still, that's all right.
I just wanted to know if there was a fee attached.
Yes, but it was minimal.
It would have been free for you to go to a public school.
Yes, but the $1 a month with the nuns... They didn't even consider the public school, That was not even considered.
Oh, there was so much more to your Catholic school than just the nuns' foreboding looks that they had in terms of their size and those crosses banging into the desks.
Yeah. But
the time that they spent with you, my 5th grade, Father Joe Grimaldi is fluid in English, and you just cavalierly went, oh, absolutely. So here's where I was going to try and go. So you went from Mount Carmel to All Hallows.
No.
Wait, did I get that wrong?
Another grade school because we moved.
Oh.
So I was in Mount Carmel for about the 5th till the 5th grade. Okay. And let's see, maybe the 4th. I was 10 years old. When we moved, 1950, we moved to the Bronx. And at the time, the Bronx was a lot of open area and so on and so forth. In any case, the parish that we belonged to was Holy Rosary. And so I went to Holy Rosary for the upper school, if you want. We had the presentation nuns. And once again, I have to admit, there was a relationship between the presentation nuns and the Irish Christian Brothers, because The founder of the Irish Christian Brothers is Brother Rice, and the foundress of the Presentation Nuns was Nano Nagel, a very good Irish name. So Nano Nagel, she and Brother Rice were friends. They founded the orders at the same time.
Wow.
In Ireland. And so naturally the nun would have said, oh, he should go to the Christian Brothers School, not the Jesuit school. When I think back, I'm sure that had something to do with it.
Well, look where it led.
Yeah.
You became an Irish Christian brother.
Correct.
Now known as the Christian Brothers. And now, of course, you're an ordained Catholic priest. Let us move quickly now into the fact that we have talked about people that aren't even Catholic who want to send their kids to Catholic school. So Catholic schools, the genesis of the Catholic school education goes way, way back. But people are still impressed with a couple of things: the education, the discipline, and also the cost.
And the safety.
And the safety. Okay. Again, we hate to use that. I had forgotten about that.
Yeah. If you look at the first, supposedly the first city in the United States is in Florida, St. Augustine, and that's where the first schools started, more or less, almost before the colonial times, okay? So you had the beginnings of the schools there, primarily because of religion. People did go to Catholic schools because of the religion. Don't forget, we're speaking 5 centuries ago. Mm-hmm. So when you speak 5 centuries ago, around the early 1600s, and then eventually 17, 18, 19, 20, so on, you're speaking about immigrants, little by little, coming into the United States. Well, it wasn't probably until the early 1800s when the Irish, pretty much, they were the people that made up the Catholic Church in the United States. And so naturally, their schools would flourish, and they would flourish for many reasons, okay? One of the reasons was there was a fear that the Protestant would, how shall I put it, there was a lot of anti-Catholicism there. That's history. I'm not making that up. There was a lot of anti-Catholicism. And because you want to preserve your own culture, your own religion, and so on, you want to establish your own schools. Now, the patriarchal see for the United States is in Baltimore, Maryland. Again, the old colonial areas too there. And so when there was a meeting, and I'm speaking about the 1700s, the 1800s, I'm not 100% sure on that, but basically there was a meeting where they discussed parishes, because that was the central thing for the United States, the beginnings of the church in the United States. What should we do? Where should we go? And well, they felt that every parish, they wanted to encourage this. It didn't always happen, but they wanted every parish to establish a parochial school. And so that's where you have this abundance of parochial schools.
Sure.
And it built up through the ages so that by the mid-60s, the 1960s, we had already 4.5 million students going to Catholic schools.
Yep.
Now, things changed drastically later on. In any case, you asked a very important question there. Why do people go to Catholic schools today? Well, education is one reason. The other reason is discipline. The other reason is safety. You mentioned them all beautifully. I don't think religion is the primary purpose. Now, if you live in other states besides Michigan and New York, we're fortunate here. We have very good public schools. But you could go to places in the South where some of the states, their schools are horrible, even Hawaii for that matter. So what happens is the Catholic schools are inundated with students because they want a better education. So, for example, when I was principal in Hawaii of a high school, Damien, we had 60% Catholics only. All the others were different kinds of religion. Well, it's nice that we were open to other people coming in, but the reason why people went to Damien, or not the only reason, but one of the main reasons was because of the poor public schools. So they came to Damien to survive. Now, it's a different story when you live in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, or Birmingham, Michigan, because we are blessed here with many very fine public schools. They can compete with any school in the United States and do well. And yet, the schools like Brother Rice and Catholic Central and Marian and so on seem to do pretty well. And you wonder sometimes, we're supposed to be in competition, but maybe we're not. And I think part of it is this. People still believe that religion is an important aspect of education. It certainly maintains the tradition of the people who send their kids to these schools. You know, when I speak about the immigrants, I almost forgot to mention, but when people came to the United States in the early 1700s and so on, people came from Germany, very strong Catholics. They settled in Ohio. Then you had the Irish. They settled in the big cities, particularly New York, Chicago, and so on. You had the Polish. They settled in Chicago and Michigan and Detroit. So you have all of these groups, the Italians on the East Coast, the West Coast. You had all of these groups who wanted to maintain their tradition, preserve their culture, preserve their religion. And so they wanted Catholic schools. And that's another reason why the Catholic schools flourished abundantly in the 1800s and so on. But it's not just the elementary schools, it's also the colleges, because look at Georgetown. It's the first Catholic university in the United States. And Georgetown is only one of about 30 colleges that run by the Jesuits. Now, you multiply that with all of the other religious orders that run schools. You take, for example, the Holy Cross Fathers with Notre Dame, and I'm just mentioning one or two famous ones, or people know those names immediately. So you go through the whole United States, there are so many colleges that are Catholic colleges. But one of the things that they're known for is their ability to accept people from, they're independent, they are Catholic, and yet they're able to accept people from other faiths. Sometimes they have to do certain courses that they would not ordinarily do in a public college, but they would do it.
Well, we need to put a bow on this package. We're talking about National Catholic Schools Week. And again, the mantra for the week, the purpose for the week is to learn, lead, serve, and succeed. I went to Brother Rice High School. I went to St. Suzanne as an early kid like you. In the third grade, I left and went to St. Bede. And then I went to Aquinas College in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
And that's why you celebrated yesterday.
Oh, that's why I was dancing for, more than a couple of minutes. Let's
that's
put it.
Right.
It was our day, okay? Yeah. Albeit a small school. I think that if anybody were to take from this a message, and I don't do this to you often, but I guess it would be the fact that Catholic or not, the consideration for someone to think about the little ones and where they should go to school, they should certainly do one of those many, many open houses that the Catholic schools have, and at least have a look around and have a listen.
I just want to say one more thing, but
I wish you would.
One of the things that I find not disturbing, but, obviously we know the numbers are dwindling, even in the school situation. Because at one time we had these nuns who generously gave up their time, and very often they didn't get paid. They were given food, they were given a place to live, but they didn't get paid. Now, with time, of course, they needed insurance, they needed all of these different things, and things have changed. So what's happened is the lay people have taken over, and they realize, hopefully, that theirs is not just a job in the school, theirs is a ministry. So they have to couple what they do academically with the idea of conducting a ministry with these young people. But see, another thing that causes the diminution, if you want, of Catholic schools is the charter schools. See, one of the things people want to consider is this. When you go to a Catholic school, let's stick with high schools right now. Once you go to a Catholic school, a number of people, not all, are sending their kids there because it's a private school and yet half the cost. Now you bring in another dimension, and that's the charter schools. Sometimes there's no cost at all, and yet they have a good reputation because they have been planned in such a way that they select their subject matter, they select their students, and so on. So you could see why the Catholic schools have dwindled in number. However, that was one of the reasons that people did send their kids to Catholic schools, one of the reasons, because they liked the idea of it being a private school, and yet it didn't have the same cost as the fancy private schools.
Absolutely. I guess, and I certainly hope I'm not living in the dark ages, I would not give back what I learned, what I took from going to Catholic school for anything. Doesn't matter how I acted in my mid-20s, my 30s, into my 40s doing rock and roll. I still relied on the values and the education. I still relied on
the network of friends that still exists.
The network of friends.
That still exists.
You nailed it. You know what? I think a lot of people sometimes, they move away and they come home and they go, why did I move home? I missed all of my buddies from grade school and high school.
One of the things I want to say is when we celebrate this Catholic Schools Week,
yeah,
it's basically a celebration and thanksgiving that we have these schools that have provided such a great education for at least 5 centuries and continue to do so, maybe not at the same pace as it was in the past, but continue to do a great job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On behalf of Father Joe Grimaldi, my name is Ken Calvert, and I'm a longtime listener and supporter of the Father Joe Grimaldi podcast, but nothing compared to our dear friend, Hoot McInerney Star Lincoln, located at 12 Mile Road and Telegraph in Southfield. Stop on by and say hi. So long, everybody.
Happy to be with you. See you soon. This is Father Joe Grimaldi, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Father Joe podcast.
If you'd like, you can email us. It's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. That's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook. Simply search Father Joe Grimaldi. And thanks for listening, everyone.